Judd ensured Brenna was in her quarters before he returned to the crime scene and spoke at length with Indigo. Then he made his way to his own room. Once there, he stripped and showered to remove the dried blood on his arms. Brenna was right. The scent would only draw attention to him, given the changeling's acute sense of smell, and tonight he needed to be invisible. When he stepped out, he didn't bother to look in a mirror, simply thrust a hand through his hair and left it at that. A part of his mind noted that his hair was past regulation length. Another part dismissed the issue as irrelevant. He was no longer a member of the Psy race's most elite army. The Psy Council had sentenced his entire family, his brother Walker, Walker's daughter Marley, and Sienna and Toby, the children of his dead sister Christine, to the living death of rehabilitation. If they hadn't defected, they would have had their minds wiped clean, their brains destroyed until they weren't much more than walking vegetables. It had been a calculated gamble to come to the wolves. He and Walker were expected to die, but they had hoped for mercy for Toby and Marley. Sienna, too old to be a child, too young to be an adult, had decided to take her chances with the wolves rather than face rehabilitation. But the snow dancers hadn't killed the adults on sight. As a result, he now lived in a world where his old life meant nothing. Getting dressed, he pulled on his pants, socks, and boots first. A man could defeat an opponent bare-chested. Having bare feet was a far greater disadvantage. It was as he was pulling on a shirt that the expected message came through on his small silver phone. Leaving the shirt buttons undone, he read the encrypted words, translating them in his mind. Target confirmed. Window, 1 week. He deleted the message the second after reading it. His next act was to push up the long sleeves of his black shirt and wrap plain cotton bandages around his forearms. They would help mask the smell of rapidly regenerating skin. Brenna would have been very surprised to see how fast he healed. His mind went over the murder scene one more time. He was certain they were dealing with a copycat. The cuts had been superficially similar to those made by Santano Enrique, but nothing more. Where Enrique had taken pride in the precision with which he mutilated his victims' bodies, this killer had hacked rather than sliced. Indigo had also confirmed that no Psy scent had been found at the scene. The final deciding factor was that Santano Enrique was most definitely dead. Judd had witnessed the other Psy being torn to pieces by wolf and leopard claws. There was no need for Brenna to worry that her tormentor had come back from the grave. Of course, that was Psy logic at work, and she was indisputably a changeling. More to the point, she didn't know that Judd had been present at Enrique's execution, and by extension, her rescue. He had no intention of changing that. Because while he might not be much good at predicting emotional reactions, he had learned enough about Brenna during the healing sessions, where he'd lent his psychic strength to Sasha as she worked to repair the fractures in Brenna's mind, to know she'd react negatively to the knowledge of his involvement. I'm not a baby anymore. No, she wasn't. And he wasn't her protector. He couldn't be. The closer he got to her, the more he could hurt her. Silence had been invented for those like him. The brutal killers and the viciously insane. Those who had turned the world of the Psy into a blood-soaked hell so bad, silence had become the better choice. The second he broke conditioning, he became a loaded gun with no safety switch. That was why he was never going to do what Sasha had done and end the silence in his mind. It was the only thing keeping the world safe from what he was. The only thing keeping Brenna safe. Pulling on a black jacket identical to the one Ty had slashed, he slid the phone into his pocket. It was time to leave the den. He had a bomb to build.